The Turdistan he fought, a bedridden devil. His army of clones at his jaw did they revel. They came after us, crossed the borderline, took all our offers to send down their mines, while the feathered beast read out Dear Bob. So cried the trekker, this madness must stop. Toss a coin to your trekker, oh planet of plenty, oh planet of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your trekker, oh planet of plenty. The vile Kurogans fled and hid what they had stole. Riorfan was shackled and kept in the cold. But he did not relent. The Turd King was hell-bent. He slayed the Kurogans, then to Bird's house he went. And with a mighty blow he struck that button red. The mighty bird folded in two by his bed. That's my epic tale, our champion prevailed. So let's drink a toast with some Romulan ale. Toss a coin to your trekker, oh planet of plenty, oh planet of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your trekker, oh planet of plenty, oh planet of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your trekker, oh planet of plenty, oh planet of plenty, oh. Toss a coin to your trekker, the great Turdistan.
Making your way with the nerds today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from hating JJ sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to just get laid? Sometimes you wanna go where all the Trekkies know your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be in a galaxy where Star Trek isn't lame. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Trekker here, along with Martok. Wrong Martok. Anyway, so just finished watching The End is the Beginning, episode 3 of season 1 of Picard. And I gotta say, I'm a little mixed on this one. Not that I thought it was bad per se, but that there were a couple of things that kind of left me scratching my head. I think a couple of choices they made that could have been better. One, and I know this may seem silly, Mr. Miles actually told me about this, but I was thinking the exact same thing, was at one point in this one we have a second use of the acid suicide pill that this Romulan group seems to employ. And I have two problems with it. One, the person who used the suicide pill used it after giving Picard the necessary information. And if you're that dedicated to your super secret military organization, you're not going to commit suicide after betraying your super secret organization. That makes no sense whatsoever. Also, Picard saw firsthand the other Romulan do this. He also you would because his two Romulan house guests, apparently, according to the comic books or whatever, are former Tal'Shir themselves, and so why didn't they remove the acid pill from this guy before they started interrogating him? Because he was unconscious for a substantial amount of time. So that kind of bothered me. I'll admit that was definitely some lazy writing there. One thing I gotta say that I'll give a little bit of credit to is that we saw in the trailers that there was a sequence being shot at Vasquez Rocks, and I heard people rolling their eyes, going, "Oh my God, they're using Vasquez Rocks again." You know, they already used it for Vulcan, and they used it for the asteroid where Kirk fought the Gorn, and they used it for a bunch of different stuff in Trek. And so what's it going to be this time? And the ironic thing is this time it's Vasquez Rocks. It is literally, the subtitle comes up, Vasquez Rocks. So, you know, so this girl that is Picard's former first officer, apparently, or assistant or something, because he was an admiral, so maybe not her first officer, but maybe like his personal assistant. She is living there, but that makes in and of itself no sense, because even though it's cool enough, they kind of show that she's down and out ever since basically Picard stepped down, because she was his personal assistant. She ended up losing her job over this, which again, what happened to the no economy future? Because it's a pretty economic future, considering there's no economy in this future. If you can, you know, she got fired from her job. They talked a little bit about how much does the captain of this this independent ship cost. Just yeah. Anyway, so she is living in the equivalent of 24th century mobile home or trailer, but she's living literally underneath the rocks where Kirk fought the Gorn, a very picturesque location, and in fact a national monument. So how did she, I mean, you have some poor person living in a trailer there? Exactly like Bird just said in the chat, he's going to park his trailer next to Old Faithful. Exactly, it'd be the same thing. Well, or if you decide to park your trailer on top of, you know, any national monument. It doesn't make a lick of sense for her to be able to just park her trailer there and live there. She's also, it's kind of funny because she's apparently a drug addict, smoking some kind of flower petal that gets her stoned and gives her visions. And yet apparently Picard approves of this because her visions are true. So they have now magic weed in California in the 24th century. So that's interesting. So a couple of choices, like I did not approve of that part of her character. I did not approve of her basically smoking weed and getting magic visions. That did not make any sense to me. I did not approve of her living at Vasquez Rocks. That being said, yeah, and it was a 21st century vaping pen, which I'm okay with that, I guess. But although the funny thing is that in episodes of Next Generation, if I remember correctly, they talked down about smoking and how horrible it was back in those ancient times, and yet apparently people still smoke. So yeah. Mike wants to know what my coffee mug say. It says, "What am I doing out of bed?" Good question. So that's kind of where I was like going, what the heck is that? Right? Those are my scratch ahead WTF kind of moments in the episode. That being said, I think that there was some interesting good things in the episode too. We delve a little deeper into Jean-Luc's convictions, why he was so upset. I gotta say, those late 24th century uniforms in the flashback scenes, I dig those uniforms. I wish that we were getting a show where that was the uniform. Those are nice uniforms, and unfortunately we're probably going to only see them in that scene. But in the flashback they showed that Picard tried to convince Starfleet brass to go forward with the rescue mission after the attack. The synthetics had been banned, and they didn't understand why, and that in and of itself is like a head scratcher to me, because of course they're banning synthetics, because a group of synthetics just destroyed Mars. It does. Now, keep in mind, in the eyes of Starfleet, synthetics are just a piece of equipment, right? They're non-sentient, which means they really are just robots. They're, it does bother me that Picard is getting so worked up over synthetics when they're non-sentient. If they were sentient like Data supposedly was, then I could understand Picard getting worked up about it. But these are simplistic robots. These are nothing more than walking, talking computer programs. And so why is Picard upset about the synthetics? That doesn't make a lick of sense to me. And so I think that's a very genuine mistake in the whole premise of the show, is that if Picard was going to be upset about the synthetics should be sentient, period. And Picard should know that they're sentient, because this would be like if somebody really got, started a massive protest because people turn off their computers and the Sims are turned off. It makes no sense. But I liked his relationship with his former first officer, because she was pissed at Picard over what he did to her, and I felt that felt pretty genuine. She was broken by it. She was angry about it. And even at the end, when she joins the crew, so to speak, she ain't joining the crew because she loves Jean-Luc so much. She's joining the crew for apparently unknown reasons, but she happens to want to go where they're going. And that's all fine and dandy, but I think that it's good that they're not just making everything the happy hour kumbaya thing. And by the way, Cinnabon, as far as the holograms versus synthetics, well, we've seen 3 holograms thus far. We had the Keeper of the Archives and then the 2 emergency holograms on this ship. And I didn't have first of all, none of those holograms appeared to be sentient either, although the ones on the ship did have a little bit of a personality. And the holograms didn't destroy Mars. Synthetics did. And according to the Starfleet inquiry, the problem with the synthetics was a coding problem with that designed synthetic itself. And if that's the truth, then maybe that would explain banning synthetics. So anyway, and now Picard admitted that he was at fault with her in that he, after 15 years, he never looked her up, he never checked in on her, and she was downright furious about it. And like I said, I'm kind of digging the fact that in some ways this show is looking at Picard through the same lens that I do. And when I say that, I mean the fact that Picard can give these high and mighty speeches about equality and fairness and, our economy, we just try to better ourselves and all that. And that's really freaking easy to say when you live in a mansion. That is really, really easy to say when you get absolutely anything you want. But this is proof, and I'm sorry, I've said it all along, but this is absolute proof that not everybody in the Federation gets what they want. No, it's not dystopian, like some people say, but it's certainly not perfection either, because, she lost her job, and now she's just living in a trailer, basically getting high and getting drunk and just waiting for her life to pass. And so not everybody gets anything they want in this future. People do, in fact, lose their jobs. People lose their careers and all that. And so I dig that. And I also dig the fact that Picard is not perfect. Now, my biggest fear with the series so far, 3 episodes in, is that they're going to somehow make sure that by the end of it, Picard was right about everything all along. And when I say that, I mean that he was right for whatever reason to leave his former assistant abandoned for 15 years. Or that he was 100% right and the Federation was 100% wrong when it comes to how the rescue operation was going to go. That everything that Picard says is absolutely right. That's my biggest fear, because right now it's kind of in a little bit of a gray area with Picard in that he has his conscience, he believes in his ethics, and he believes in his compassion, but he's running into the stone wall of the Federation, of the bureaucracy and everything. And obviously we know that the Tal Shiar is working with the chief of security of Starfleet, but I'm hoping that's as far as the conspiracy goes. I'm hoping that they don't try to make it that everybody that was against the Romulan relocation was a conspirator. But only time will tell on that. So I'm done. I haven't decided exactly. I'm going to say this. I think it was better than last week's episode. But because of some of those problems that I talked about, I don't think it's as good as the first episode. So, but I gave the first episode a 7. I gave the second episode a 6. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5. I'm going to say that it is in between the two, because I think that there's some good. There's definitely some good in there. I still think Patrick Stewart, despite his advanced age, is carrying himself well. I still think his character feels like Jean-Luc, but there are some genuine problems with this episode when it comes to some of the stuff I just outlined, and it's just some of it's just not quite adding up. Like the synthetic thing I'm scratching my head over. The synthetic thing is not making a lot of sense to me, because while I think that Starfleet was clearly in the right for banning synthetics after what happened on Mars, I think that Picard himself is being stupid for not seeing that. And if by the end of this series it turns out that the synthetics are the heroes and they shouldn't have been, that's going to make me mad if we get there. So that's kind of where I sit with it. So now on to what you guys had to say. Now, about an hour before I started, DJ said, la, 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 la. Thank you, DJ, I guess. Cinnabon says hello. J. Pez Bison says hello. Captain Cat says hi. Cinnabon gives it a 5 out of 10. Might lower it. Lots of dumb things in this episode. Not going to argue that there weren't some dumb things in this episode, but by the way, another thing I kind of liked was that when the Tal Shiar Death Squad shows up at Chateau Picard, Picard gets his ass handed to him. All right. Yes, Picard manages to shoot one of them. But, but when he tries to go head to head with a freaking Romulan, yeah, that doesn't go well. So I actually kind of dig that. I like the fact that they didn't try to make Picard into, kind of like, you guys know I love Deep Space Nine, but kind of like the fact that on Deep Space Nine, you have everybody on Deep Space Nine suddenly able to kick Klingon butt, even with a batleth in their hand. So, yeah, I really appreciate that Picard got his ass kicked. Mike Richards is here from Columbus, Ohio. Cinnabon says, FYI, episodes are coming out an hour earlier. I know, and I keep forgetting to get up an hour earlier to check, because I've been, I'll be honest with you, I only got about 4 hours of sleep. Continuum Trek says, hey. JP says, good morning, AT. Hey, Continuum says, I hope there weren't any F-bombs. There were not, and I'm glad about that. But I think, what's her name? Didn't she say the S word that stands for my avatar? Zeke says, who's Picard? An old man. Cinnamon says, no, but there were some GDs in there. Yes, that's true, too. It's not so bad. Cisco said damn a few times. Yeah, damn I don't really have a problem with. That's consistent. I mean, damn goes all the way back to the original series. Bird says, Kapla, no, GD. Death Dealer says, hey, Auntie, how you doing? Mike Richards says, hi to Bird of Prey. Bird of Prey says, I'm going to part my trailer next to Old Faithful. Yes, exactly. That's kind of what they did. Cinnamon says, space weed, yes, and Bird of Prey says, snake leaf. That's what she referred to it as, a snake leaf, which I'm assuming is the plant. But it seems to be not like, it seems to be a straight up hallucinogen, but it also seems to give her magic visions because, as Picard says, she can see things that others can't. And I didn't like, because she's just human from what we saw. So why does she have apparent clairvoyant ability? That I'm not buying that. She's got some street cred, though. I actually, like I said, I know some people didn't like her. Like, I don't think Mr. Miles liked her from his message to me, but I kind of liked her in that she felt like genuine damaged goods to me, and I like that about her. But I did not like. I will say this: every time she called her JL, I wanted to punch her. I did not like that, but that was mostly in the flashback. So, yeah. And what I don't understand also is that why is it that Picard said, oh no, I won't go to Riker and Worf because they're too loyal, but I'll go to this crazy lady that used to work for me. Okay. Ryan says, the scenes with her in the beginning and at the trailer felt like a fan film. I didn't buy her character at all. See, I know that's kind of what Mr. Miles said. In the flashback, I think it felt kind of like her thing felt kind of like a fan film, but I think in the trailer she felt genuine. JPEG says, a douche pin? Okay. Mike says, what does your coffee mug say? Oh, I already read that. For those of us who want to quit smoking but still look cool. Yeah. And yes, the banned synthetics are, but you see, the banned synthetics, it makes perfect sense. It would be like any kind of defective product. You would, it was a recall. Bird of Prey says, seems way out of character for Picard, would have ignored her 15 years. Why not move her into the chateau? Maybe he's racist. Actually, here's the thing, Bird. I don't think that's out of character for Picard at all. Because how many times did Picard do something to help some group of people and then never go back and check on them ever? And don't get me wrong, Picard's not the only character in Star Trek history to do that. Heck, that was the whole premise of Star Trek 2, right? Where Khan was kind of pissed off because Kirk never came back to check on him. But that's just typical Trek. Oh, well, I've fixed everything for you. Have a nice day. And then never look back. Oh, sorry, we screwed everything up. Have a nice day. And never look back. That's just kind of how they do it. And so this was the first time where they showed the actual consequences of that. And I kind of appreciated that. Kick44 says, just watch Nerdrotic's take. Yep. I don't know what Nerdrotic thought of it, so I'm assuming he probably hated it. That's just my guess. All of his rooms are filled with his Romulan servants. That's true, yes. He couldn't bring her on because, he's got too many Romulan house slaves. I really love the episode. I give it a high 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10. As expected, Gary hated it. Well, Gary hating it, that doesn't really surprise me. But I'll give you that this one had some reasons to dislike it. You could definitely pick this one apart and say, that's why I wouldn't give it, I gave it a 6.5 only because I gave the last episode a 6. But I can certainly see why someone would not like it. Epic just finished watching it, liked it. There are many problems with the details, inconsistencies with itself. I agree. That's there are definitely some issues there. And I'm wondering if some of that awkwardness there is because of the behind the scenes drama. The fact that Shaban had to leave the show and that kind of crap. Maybe, I don't know if that's what happened there, that maybe they had some ideas that they had to switch around and do some stuff with. I don't know. but only we'll see where the show goes moving forward. Orville says, totally agree, but I'm not sure with whom. Ryan says, I think this one was the weakest by far. It's kind of funny. This one is dividing people. So a lot of people think it's the best. A lot of people think it's the worst. I'll watch it again tomorrow. Too sleepy right now. Yeah, I'll watch it tomorrow. Too sleepy right now. I understand that. I'm gonna have a tough time reviewing this episode, to be honest with you, because there's a lot there to like and there's a lot there to not like. Orville Nation giving fist bumps all around. Cinnabon says, in the flashback scene, they talk about billions of lives at risk. 2 lines later, it was tens of millions. Which is it? I didn't catch that particular line. However, I could see if they said billions of lives at risk versus tens of millions of lives that were actually in the direct path of the supernova. I don't know. I'd have to re-watch that scene. So I'm not sure. Orville says, still not sure what I'm watching. Well, I'm Michael. This is the Anti-Trekker channel. Mako says, not to rewatch it. Not sure what inconsistencies there were, but you might be in the right. I didn't notice anything that bad. Well, and that's the thing. I did not hate the episode, but those little things did pull me out. Like the whole thing. The acid pill is the symptomatic of the somewhat lazy writing here. Is that didn't they stop to think that if you're in a room there's 3 people in the room besides the Romulan agent, and Picard witnessed the acid pill firsthand, and the other 2 are former Tal Shiar agents, and none of them thought to remove said acid pill from the guy, which would have been actually a funny little moment, is that Picard says, well, we're going to talk, and he's like, all right, here's what's going. That would have actually been a funny little moment to add a little levity to the show, but also show that they were thinking about that. So, yeah, I didn't get that. And then why didn't the guy bite the pill as soon as he realized he was taken captive? Why did he talk first? That was just lazy writing. It's like, well, the script says I have to tell you this, so I'm going to tell you and then kill myself. Death to Kuroga, indeed. Orville saying, Kaplata Bird. Ramling says, hello, Anti-Trekker and Bird of Prey. Hey, Ramling, good to see you, my friend. I got the feeling she was a 911 truther, a 9/11 truther in the 24th century. Carlos says, morning, wait, they still believe in God, religion, belief? That was kind of funny. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, wait a minute. Where are they going with... Yeah, what? Marlena says, hail. But here's the thing, Carlos, is that I think that while Picard was clearly an atheist, I think that this... I don't think that atheism has suddenly just swept the Federation. Sci-Fi Sid says, hello there, Anti-Trekker. So was episode 3 good, bad, or meh? Kind of meh, but not meh in any particular... That's the funny thing about it. It ended up getting a meh score, but it's because there were things that I really thought were great and things that I thought were really crap. And so it's like it averaged out to meh. And let's see, I didn't see her as being clairvoyant. She just that she has an open mind. Well, you know what? Having an open mind doesn't help you suddenly see things that everybody else misses. It's like Picard sends her the data on Maddox, and then she smokes some of her weed, and then instantly sees where Maddox clearly is, even though Picard had all the data, not to mention the greatest Romulan hacker in the history of history, and they couldn't figure it out. But she smokes a little space weed, and all of a sudden she knows exactly where Maddox is going. I don't buy that. That's one of the problems, is that either she has superpowers with space weed or she doesn't. If she doesn't, then she's just a drug addict and Picard should not have her on the ship. If she does, then why the hell isn't everybody smoking space weed? Carlos says, hail Kuroga. Yeah, you do realize that... well, we'll just play the clip just so that everybody understands the truth behind saying Hail Kuroga.
Martok's the changeling!
All hail Kuroga.
So yes, the Hail Kuroga came out of the Martok changeling. Zhaban said Picard had to find someone who hates him and had nothing to lose. Very convenient he knew someone in that situation. Oh, that's kind of true. Carlo liked it. I don't know if you mean like the stream or you like the show. Bird says hello to someone. Carlos says, oh no, I'll see it later. All right. Carlos says that no reason why Picard went to his last XO. The reason why Picard went to his last XO because she had no family. Well, yeah, she's living in a trailer smoking space weed. But I still think that it's like if I was in Picard's shoes, it's like, I need to get a crew of people together in order to go on a space adventure that could potentially be very dangerous. Who do I get? Should I go to Riker, Troy, Worf, Geordi, the greatest crew ever assembled that all just happen to be loyal to me to a fault? Or do I go to Space Meth Head? Picard was always cold and never even played poker with the crew, and they were in the same ship, a bit of a loner. That's true. I didn't have a problem with that, but I did like that you saw some of the consequences of it. Come on, and never in Trek history did we go back and check on anything, but this woman was his friend and crew member. So is Dr. Polanski. And Dr. Polanski replaced his freaking heart. So, yeah. Ozzy says, seems like this episode was decent. Decent's a good word for it. I did not hate it, but there was definitely some bad stuff, mainly from lazy writing. I thought the Vulcan was going to neuralize the cyberneticist when she showed up. Yeah, that was pretty intense when the Vulcan showed up. I was not expecting to see the cyberneticist again. I was like, oh, she's dead. But I guess not. And that didn't, honestly, why didn't they kill her? Or at least, why didn't they follow her? Carlos says, lazy writing strikes again. I kind of agree. Carlos son says, the Vulcan Commodore wearing shades. The hell? I didn't have a problem with that. Here's the thing. In the military, yes, you can wear sunglasses. Depending on, as long as they're within uniform code. Orville says, hey, Checker is funny. Thank you. Mars was an inside job. Well, yeah, I'm sure that Space Meth Head thinks so. Did Picard see him biting the tooth, though? He was down the stairs when he did that. Still not an excuse for Tal Shiar not knowing about it. Yeah, I thought about that, too. You could argue that Picard, as a result of his injury and distance, may not have understood why he disintegrated, or he could have assumed from that distance that the exploding plasma gun just took him out along with Daj. However, his two house servant Tal Shiar slave people, they should have known immediately what he was going to do. Maybe the acid pill was beamed to his mouth right when he wanted it. See, I can lazy write too. There you go. Continuum says Mars Truther. Yes, I think we need a shirt that says that. Sometimes being too open-minded means shit falls out. Bird says she is a drug addict. She appears to be. Which is kind of an interesting thing. She would be the first drug addict we saw within the Federation. But here's the problem, is that all the way back to the first season of TNG, Wesley would be like, golly gee, everybody, why are they taking drugs? Well, you see, Wesley, sometimes people want to feel better, so they take drugs to make them feel better. Oh, golly gee, that sounds stupid. It is stupid, Wesley. It is stupid. Don't do drugs. That's kind of the mentality of Starfleet in TNG. And yet now we actually have, homegrown space weed. So, well, yeah, I guess we've come a long way, haven't we? Strange Cut Picard's house has so many Romulan disruptors everywhere, but not a Starfleet phaser, especially since Romulan weapons don't have a stun setting. Wrong answer, Cinnabon. There was a Starfleet phaser. That's how they got the one guy that they took alive. And remember, it was attached to the bottom of Picard's desk, which That is like, wow. So Picard keeps a phaser tucked under his desk. Was he expecting this all along? Epic says Anti-Checker is against Space Weed. Well, if it makes you into what she is, yes. But Space Weed cures everything. Well, apparently not. Mac says, what? I don't remember that line. Not sure which line you're talking about. Epic Beer says El Presidente endorses the Space Weed. Bird of Prey says she's the main character, the cyberneticist. She's a main character, the cyberneticist. Maybe so, but I still not knowing that because, see, unlike you, Bird, I didn't read spoilers or anything. I don't know what's going to happen. I didn't know if she was coming back, so she could have been a one-off, you know. George says, greetings, sir. It was an odd episode. Very odd. That's a good way to put it, actually. It was definitely an odd episode. El Presidente also endorses the smoking of belly button lint. Okay. Cinnamon says, I think she might be on it. Why else would she magically show up at Picard's house right at the end of the attack? On the Space Weed? Sunglasses don't Vulcans have inner eyelids? They do, but maybe she just wants to look cool, you know? Vulcans need sunglasses with you. Well, here's the thing about the inner eyelids. The inner eyelids, according to Spock, was only for when they were in the most extreme of circumstances. And so, other than that, like he said, we tend to ignore it, just as you humans ignore your appendix, which doesn't make a lot of sense because you can't, like, blink your appendix, but okay, whatever. I'll take that for what it is. But the inner eyelid thing doesn't. I mean, like, you have eyelids, you can close your eyes all day long, but sometimes you want to keep your eyes open so you can see where you're going. And I would assume that when a Vulcan closes their inner eyelid, yeah, that would be just like closing your outer eyelids, and you wouldn't be able to see anything. Commodore says, good morning and good night. Security officer signing off. Have a good one. Marco says, Raffi will probably be the opioid crisis social commentary. Oh, jeez. Oh, I hope not. If so, that would be so stupid. If they tried to make every little thing about something, and believe me, you know that whole opioid crisis thing is going to trigger me because I'm so pissed off about the fact that I can't get any pain medication because everybody's afraid that I'm going to get addicted to it. And it's like, yeah, well then give me something that will, make it so that I can do my freaking job without being in constant pain. But nope. And so I'll be, I'm supposed to actually, I go back to work, doing my full job with no harness day after, now tomorrow. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. And because of the opioid crisis, I can't get any drugs that will help me. George says, oh my God, no sleep. I have an excuse for staying on, but it's snowing outside and the polar bears are at the door. What's yours? I wish that it was snowing outside here. What would Kirk do? Well, Kirk would have punched the Romulans and sent them flying into next week. Then he would have stormed into Starfleet Command and punched the Admiral, when she said, effing hubris. He would have just punched her in the face. No, I don't know. It would have been a very different show, though. Would Kirk have one also? I think so. Have one what? I'm not sure on. And let's see. Not really liking Raffi so far. To describe her in 2 words, I'd say manufactured personality. Those writers are weak on dialogue. They try too hard to make it edgy, clever. Well, I do think that the dialogue is still the weakest element of the show. That much I will definitely agree with. As far as Raffi, she felt like genuine damaged goods to me. I didn't hate that part of it, even though I know, like, Mr. Miles couldn't stand her. Felt that she felt forced and everything. I didn't get that feeling, but that's subjective. Track Reviewer says, hi, how you doing? Bird of Prey says, Vulcans should never need sunglasses on Earth. It makes no sense. Why? That's like saying that black people shouldn't need sunglasses in the United States. That's just kind of racist. Honestly, there's, bright sun is bright sun regardless of what planet you're on. And it's not like, because if the Vulcan sun was that intense, then wouldn't Archer have gone blind in the forge as opposed to it just being inconvenient? Let the space weed memes engage. Smoke some pot for the pain. Yeah, I can't do that. It's not legal where I live. If it were legal, I absolutely would. Bird says, gotta go. It's going to take forever to review. All right, my friend. I don't think it's going to take 2 parts to review, but yeah. And Carlos says, dude, get some sleep. I'm good chatting with you. Well, here's the problem, though. I'm a greedy bastard, so I got to do this stuff in order to, keep the channel going and everything. Kirk would have done Dr. Girardi. Well, probably true. And let's see. Bird of Praise giving it a 8 out of 10 as a standalone as a Trek episode of 5. See, I can't do that. I know a lot of people are doing that kind of thing. Well, if it's not Trek, I'll give it this score. If it is Trek, no. It just gets a score because, you know what? It is Trek. So, if you want to give it a 5 because you don't think it's good Trek, give it a 5. But don't play the game of it. And I'm just saying, Bird, I mean, you can do whatever you want, of course, but I would say don't play that game because now you're just playing both sides. It's either good or it's not good. And it's not, well, it's good as long as it doesn't have the Star Trek name on it. Well, it does have the Star Trek name on it. So if having the Star Trek name on it breaks it, then give it the bad score. But Bird also throws $2 in, says, throw a coin to your Trekker. I can't sing. But thank you, Bird. I appreciate it, my friend. Even if you are a filthy Karogan, you're a good man. See, if you just weren't a Karogan, I would give you an 8 out of 10. But because you're a Karogan, I can only give you a 1 out. And thank you again, Bird. And there's the official announcement as we watch Bird explode. Vulcans don't have good control over their inner eyelids, or Spock's vision would have come back as soon as he wanted, so sunglasses could help a Vulcan see well in extreme conditions. Yeah. Vulcan is a desert planet. They evolved in bright light on a bright planet. Again, it's not so bright that humans can't handle it, so it's, and they have an inner eyelid that only works in extreme circumstances. Marlena says, gotcha, I assume to Bird. Saudi Arabia's desert country, but people still wear sunglasses. Yeah, and they don't have inner eyelids either, but, They told Archer likely he couldn't survive in the Vulcan desert, and yet he did. J. Pez says, move to Canada, free healthcare and legal space weed. I tell you, J. Pez, if I could move to Canada right now, I probably would. But, yeah. And there's Bird's $2. Thank you again, Bird. It used to be, it used to be a desert planet, Bird of Prey. Disco kind of changed it with Sarek's house. It wasn't a lakeshore location with lots of trees. That's true. So, not desert anymore. What is disco? Never heard of it. Well, disco was a dance craze back in the 1970s. Very popular, actually. And, yeah, that's about it. Yosef puts €2 in. Thank you so much, Yosef. Says, what's the overall consensus? Just finished 7 out of 10. Currently I'm sitting at 6.5 out of 10 because with some of the plot inconsistencies, I can't score it as high as the first episode, but I do think that because of some of the shining moments in it, it's better than the second episode. So I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I hope it's like if every episode falls in between other episodes, I'm going to end up like by the end of the season going, okay, this one was a 6.389. I got it. Jarsa puts $2 Canadian in and says, I also gave it a 7 out of 10. Closing shot was great. I did like the closing shot. By the way, the music cues, again, I do like the fact that they're every now and then, just enough to remind you, they throw in a little bit of next-gen music. So I do like that. I like that they do that in the opening credits, and they did it again a couple of times. I think just once, but I thought it was maybe a couple of times in this episode where you hear that da-da-da, do-do-do, just enough to remind you of what this really is. And let's see. Rafi was his first officer aboard the USS Verity. Like I said, as far as in the context of this episode, if Picard, they said, and if there's Jar's super chat, thank you again. And Bert, if you're still here, here's the problem. I don't care what the comic book says. I diss that all the time, but based on the context of the flashback sequence and the interview that we saw in episode 1, and I actually rewatched that for a video I'm working on right now, is if you look at that interview, she says you left the Enterprise to take command of this rescue armada. That's not being the captain of a ship. That is being the admiral over an entire armada. And does that mean that he was an admiral who just served as the captain of a ship that was in command of this armada? Or was he an overseeing admiral over this entire operation, which is more the idea that I got? In which case, Raffi would be his assistant, not necessarily his XO. Now, I understand you've read the comic books, and in the comic books, apparently she's his XO. But by the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bird, and I don't know if you're still here, but in the comic books, did they show the Enterprise F? Because if they did, then it's already proof that it's not canon, because they said that Picard was captain of the Enterprise D and E. No mention of the F. And if it was aboard the USS Verity, then how could he have left the Enterprise to take command of this fleet? Saying that the whole planet is in the desert, is a desert is stupid. It's Star Wars logic. Agree on that. I do think it makes sense. The Vulcan would have more than one climate. Plus, if the whole planet was just a frickin' desert, how would life survive there anyway? Raffi was also the Federation expert on Romulans. Okay. There's nothing in this episode to indicate that. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 as well. Okay, epic. So I think we're on this general same page. I mean, 6.5 to 7 out of 10. I'm good with that. Rambling Canuck says, well, Trigger, well, come up, LOL, come for the snow and stay for the healthcare. I tell you, here's the thing, Rambling, it's not that easy. If it was, I would already be there. But you can't just move to Canada. Like, I couldn't just sell my house and move to Canada and live off the system, right? I would have to get a job, and which I can't really do, I don't think Canada's going to consider being a YouTuber a real job. But honestly, yeah, if I could just sell my house, pack up the bags, move to Canada, granted, I would have to convince Mrs. Anti-Checker to do that too. But if I could, I would do that in a heartbeat. But Canada also doesn't just say, oh, sure, come on in. Okay, we got plenty of back bacon and beer. Here's your complimentary glass of maple syrup. It doesn't work that way. Trek Viewer says, I heard Anti-Checker could cut a rug back in the days of disco. LOL, just kid. Yeah, I can't dance for the crap. You can ask Mrs. Anti-Checker about that. That's a fact. So these episodes getting better or good. I wouldn't say getting better, but I wouldn't say getting significantly worse. This one had a couple of more problems than prior episodes, but it also had some good moments. And so I'm still undecided as to where the series is going to end up. And they're going to Cloud City. Well, Free Cloud, I guess. Great kid, don't get penisy. Yes. He was the admiral of the USS Verity, and yes, he was the captain of the ship of the Verity, but admiral. And Raffi was his first officer. The Enterprise only mentioned, not shown. No Enterprise F in the comic books. Don't know if it was E or F. Claim asylum in Canada. I wish I could, Bird. And in fact, that would be a good way to try and do it. It's like go to Canada and say that I'm being persecuted by the American healthcare system. I wonder if the Canadian government would go for that. Okay, so he's an operational admiral. So he's just the captain of a ship, really. Because keep in mind, captain of a ship is a position, not a rank. So you can be an admiral and be the captain of a ship. But if he's just the captain of the ship, and that ship is then in charge of the armada, okay, but it seems like, I mean, how many ships did they say were in this armada? Like thousands? So that doesn't make a lot of sense. You're being persecuted by Karoga. Well, thank you for at least admitting it. You guys have a great morning, you two, is that JP's? Jay. Jarza puts another $5 in and says, it makes no sense that the head of Starfleet security is a Commodore. Commodores command a flotilla. They don't fly a desk. And Wesley in TOS uses the rank Right, you're right. Commodore Wesley was, and Commodore Decker, both done correctly. But you're right. That she should. I kind of thought it was funny in that they brought back the rank of Commodore, because we haven't seen a Commodore in some time. But then they use it incorrectly. But yeah, she should have been an admiral. She should not have been a Commodore. And I know that technically speaking, a Commodore is the same as a 1-star admiral, but I still think that they should have just made her a 2-star and, you know, done it properly, because she's the head of freaking Starfleet security. And also, I thought it was kind of weird that her associate in the Tal Shiar was only like a lieutenant. Shouldn't she have been like a Commodore, or not a Commodore, but at least a commander? Maybe even a captain. Just do a black face. You'll be fine in Canada? What? Just do a black face. You'll be fine in Canada. I must have missed something. I must have missed something. It's JP. I hate JP. Oh, I see. Your name is JP. Oh, well, but you know what? Every time Raffi said JP, the Vulcan doesn't know the lieutenant is Romulans. Are you sure? But even if that's the case, Bert, and I'm not talking about the conspiracy here, I'm saying that if the head of Starfleet security is calling her most trusted person to take care of a situation, you would think that person would not be a lieutenant. And by the way, she doesn't know that this person is part of the Tal Shiar, but then sends her off to where exactly? Our Prime Minister is a moron. The reason for the blackface. Oh, okay. Fair enough. I forgot about that whole thing. But yeah, it's not like American politicians never do anything stupid. I thought Commodore is a commander of a small fleet. Yes, a Commodore is basically like a fleet captain. Commodore is a weird rank because it's also a position, but there are so many opportunities to use it during the Dominion War. Yeah, in fact, I think during the Dominion War they should have made Sisko a Commodore. But I think that would have been cool. But that would have been our first lead character who was a Commodore. But yeah, I think that using the head of Starfleet security as a Commodore, that felt weird. Admirals command the fleet overall. A captain would command the ship unless they are a fleet captain. Well, it depends, Charles. In the U.S. Navy, commanding a ship is not set to a specific rank. For example, it is not uncommon for the commander or the captain of an aircraft carrier to be an admiral. So, I don't. So it's not like if you're an admiral, you have to have a fleet. Also, how come no one mentioned the Romulan chick wants to bone her brother? Everyone liked Game of Thrones, therefore everyone likes incest. I didn't get the feeling that she wanted to bone him. I thought she was just kind of messing with him because she could smell. Which, by the way, I thought that was an interesting callback, because remember, in Enterprise we established Vulcans have a heightened sense of smell, so it would make sense that Romulans do as well. But that she could smell the synth on him. And it's kind of carnal, you know. And I think she was just messing with him in a weird, bizarre way. I think it's all Dominion trap. Everyone is a changeling, even the droids. You know, I actually thought, wouldn't that be weird if there was a changeling involved in all this? Hey, JP Buzz, how are you? Says Rambling Canuck. Let's see. We're not Highlanders, therefore there can be more of us. Okay. And JP says, anyway, trying to go to sleep. Well, try harder. And Epic says, blame Canada for Picard episode flaws. It works for South Park. You know, I probably should. I'll try to remember that as I'm working on my review. I didn't get the feeling she was into him romantically. She was mocking him. That's exactly what I thought. But apparently Bird of Prey, when he sees a sister mocking her brother, he immediately thinks of that for some weird reason. Submarine captains are usually commanders too. Well, there you go. But yeah, being the captain of a ship has nothing to do directly with your rank, except that obviously it's going to be the senior most permanent officer on that ship. Let's see. Keep the JP. I'm not going to lose my head over Elcox, Joseph, or Joseph Petrick. We could also be JP. I'm just going to call everybody JP from now on. I do not understand why Crusher was not made first officer of the Enterprise after Nemesis. Why would she be? Or are you talking about Wesley? And why would he be? There can be only one. Considering there was a command qualified officer and the lone remaining senior officer from Picard's previous command staff. Considering she was the command qualified Enterprise and the lone remaining senior officer from Picard's previous command staff. Yeah, but she's also the chief medical officer, and so that would. You can't have the first officer be tied down with having to go to sick bay every time somebody got hurt. So, yeah. Okay, really leaving now, says JP. We'll see. Lancer says, never blame Canada for anything in February. My Bloody Valentine is a cautionary tale about angry Canadians. No, see, that's a misnomer, Lancer. There's no such thing as an angry Canadian. And then JP says, later, my peeps. Yeah, we'll see if JP's serious. And Bird says, now I'm really out. You guys are just teasing me here. Joseph says, the Romulan non-slaves have some good fighting skills. I love the shocked face of Picard as the attack occurred. Yeah, well, and like I said, I thought the fact that Picard basically got his ass handed to him, I really appreciated. M says, ha ha ha, there could be only one accent, got me laughing, and it hurts a little, sorry. Yeah, I've always, whenever, that's one of those little things that I just learned how to do. There can be only one. That's the only thing I can do that sounds anything like him. The EMH deactivating was cheap. Why was it cheap? And I did think it was interesting that there's an ENH as well. Bird is going to talk to his changeling yellow cake orphans. Yes, he probably is. Then appoint on an other CMO to replace Crusher. Well, is that where Rafi came? Maybe that's when they met. Dax and Worf were often in command of the Defiant as lieutenant commanders. Picard was only a lieutenant commander when he got command of the Stargazer, and probably hadn't been for long since he was just 6 years out of the Academy. Yeah. It does. You don't have to be a particular rank to be in command of a starship or a Navy vessel. M says ENH. Yes, if you listen carefully, he said deactivate ENH when he was talking to the emergency navigational hologram that was fixing the navigation system. The one that had the I'm trying to remember the accents now. I mean, the EMH had an English accent. The ENH, I think, had an Irish accent, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and rewatch it, but something like that. I need to head out to hope to see you at 11 Central over Life with Matthews channel for a panel discussion. I'm planning on being there for it, Cinnabon. So assuming I can get my review done and maybe get a couple more hours of sleep, then that is the plan, is that at 11 o'clock, I'll be over on Life with Matthews channel. Jar says, also, regarding no angry Canadians, I guess you didn't see Stuart Foley's first reaction to the Children of Mars short. Well, I understand that Canadians think that that's anger. What it really is just a lack of happiness. That's about as angry as Canadians can get. Ooh, I'm really mad now, eh? And it just doesn't, that's about as far as it goes. Darth Revan says, enter morning. What number would you give this episode? How was it? I said a 6.5 out of 10. It had some really interesting and really cool stuff. It had some crap. And so it kind of floated between the two. And it's going to be a tough one for me to do a review on, because I don't want to have to show every little point that I liked and hated about it, but that's kind of what I'm going to have to do, I think. And then Darth Revan puts a weird face in the chat for reasons, I guess. Insane Irish. But, you know, that's the problem with Irish people. And it seems that, you know, so... Oh, we also get to hear that apparently... by the way, Darth Revan, you're going to love this. So... apparently there's the Irish Romulan chick, right? We've seen her from first episode of Picard, right? The Picard's personal servant is an Irish Romulan chick, and she calls the other Romulan house servant a crazy northerner. And so they're just trying to get their allegories all over the place. So apparently, Romulus was North and Southern Ireland, or North, yeah. But yeah, I figured you'd like that. I'm not making it up, Darth Revan. I am not making it up. It is in the freaking episode. When they capture a member of this Tulsiar subgroup and they're interrogating him, and they're like, why won't he talk? And she says, because he's a crazy northerner just like you. I'm not kidding. The Irish the Irish Romulan said that. I thought that you would like that. So Keck44 says Nerdrotic gave it a 3 out of 10. I could see Nerdrotic giving about that. Andrew Checker, make it so. Echo Base Network is in the house. How you doing, Echo Base? Darth Vader says, why is this a thing? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, Lance says, gosh dang long-eared leprechauns. That's what it is. They're all leprechauns. They couldn't think of anything else, and it's like, screw it, the Romulans are leprechauns. Oh man, remember before Enterprise we used to say TNG Klingons were northern Klingons and the smoothheads were southern. That's true, but here's the thing, Jarsa, is that, and Darth Revan will tell you all about it, trust me, he is an expert on this stuff, but Darth Revan lives in Ireland, and to have an Irish character say that has a deeper meaning than it does like in the United States or somewhere else. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Darth, but yeah, it would to refer to an Irish person as a crazy northerner has a bit more of a sting to it than most nations. Now, granted, in the United States, you could say that, but only if you had a Southern accent, you know. But, you know, you're just a crazy northerner. And that's the thing. The fact that she has an Irish accent is what puts the emphasis on it, nothing else. Echo Base says, how bad is this show getting? Well, that's very pessimistic of you. I don't think that it's bad at this point. But I think that... I think that it could go either way. It's kind of teetering on a razor's edge as far as this could be brilliant or it could be trash depending on where it goes. And it's really going to hinge on, are they going to make Picard 100% right at the end of the series? If so, then it falls apart. If, however, they're going to leave it kind of there where Picard had a point, but he's also a little off his rocker, then it could be absolutely brilliant. But it's hard to say at this point. And I know that all the naysayers are saying, oh, well, I read the spoilers and it's going to suck after episode 4. You know, we'll see. You know, and you know, the problem is that reading the spoilers and saying, well, it's going to suck as soon as this happens, you've already decided it sucks. So if the spoilers are at all accurate, then as soon as whatever triggering event happens, you see, I told you it's going to suck. You know, and that's kind of what happened with Rise of Skywalker as an example. And Echo Base, I know you're more of a Star Wars fan than Star Trek. And I never really got a chance to talk to you about Rise of Skywalker, but here's the thing. before Rise of Skywalker came out, a lot of people were like, oh my God, they're going to put force healing in this. How stupid is that, right? And then force healing, it happens. And so people are saying, see, I told you, how stupid was that? I didn't have a problem with the force healing. That was not a major issue for me in the movie. Well, they just made up new force power. They make up new force powers all the time. You know, anybody remember telekinesis in the first Star Wars movie? No? Oh, yeah, that's because it wasn't there. That didn't show up until the second movie. You know, what about force ghosts being able to just materialize and talk to you? No, that wasn't until the second movie either. Hey, how about force lightning? Oh, that wasn't until the third movie. All right, so they kept adding more force powers just because, you know, keep it interesting. I'm okay with that. So adding force heal didn't break anything to me, but since people had already decided that having force heal was a problem, when the force heal happens in the movie, they throw up their hands and say, see, I was right all along. This is the worst movie ever. It sucks, 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 sucks. And so I don't give a crap about what people say that is going to happen after episode 4 and how the show is going to completely fall apart because they read some plot point on some stupid Reddit about how stupid something that's going to happen is, right? Because you can make anything sound stupid. You know, if I tell you that, hey, this whole thing is about time-traveling robots that go back in time to perform retroactive abortions, you would think, how stupid is that, even though The Terminator was a freaking awesome movie, right? And so it just depends on how you look at it. So I am not going to judge it until I see it. However, as of right now, the show could go good, could go bad. Sorry, that was kind of a tangent. I apologize. Desmond says, the EMH was treated like a simple hollow projection from earlier shows, yet interacting with objects and environment on the ship like an advanced thinking sentient being, but turning as if it looked 2D. Well, first of all, I'm not sure why you think interacting with objects and environment on the ship like an advanced thinking sentient being. Interacting physically with something has nothing to do with sentience. Sentience means self-aware, and if it was programmed with, you know, it's like, was Jarvis in Iron Man self-aware, or is Jarvis just a computer program, right? Is Data self-aware, just a computer program? Are the synths self-aware, just computer programs? And of course, holograms. The Doctor from Voyager, you know, apparently was not self-aware until he was left on for too long, because it's a typical trope in Trek and other sci-fi is that apparently if you leave a computer running for long enough, it becomes self-aware. And so if you just leave your PC on for like a month, it becomes self-aware. So don't leave your PC on for a month, because according to Star Trek, then it'll become a living, thinking thing. But having a little bit of personality, people do that with their freaking phones, right? You know? And so it having a little bit of a personality didn't bother me. And holograms interacting with their environment just means that there's holoprojectors in the room. And keep in mind, we're not talking about Discovery here. We're not talking about something that takes place pre-TOS. In TNG, we had interactive holograms. So this is nothing new. She's just protecting her Lucky Charms. Indeed. Echo Bay says, okay, I was in the middle of the ground after episode 1 and Coach loved it. Oh, okay. And I actually am enjoying the show so far, but like I said, it is teetering on a razor's edge. As it could go good or bad. Picard is still better than season 1 of TNG. Oh, absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Yes, we count the North as part of Ireland. We don't say Northerner. We say, when we say he's a unionist or something, because the North and Ireland are fighting for reunification. We see, like I said, I don't know all the details of it, but I just thought it was funny that the Irish Romulan referred to the others as crazy Northerners. I heard it was going to get better after episode 4. Well, I've heard people say that, you know, like on Midnight's Edge and some people, oh, well, you know, in the spoilers, after episode 4, it all falls apart. So we'll see. I don't know which way it's going to go. Honestly, as of right now, like I said, if Picard is at least partially wrong, it's going to be a brilliant show. If Picard is 100% right, then it's a melodrama and quite frankly, kind of stupid. But the problem is, I don't know which way they're going to go yet. Echo Base says didn't have an issue with force healing either. It was in the games. Yeah, I never had a problem with it. A lot of people went into Picard with expectations and spoilers, so they want to hate it. Realistically, the show's 6 out of 10 so far, which is good. Like I said, I'm giving it right now. You know, it's funny because this episode I gave a 6.5, and that's what I would give the series to this point. Is the blonde doctor now a mole or a friend? Good question. And that's the thing. I think that that's actually something that could go either way. Same thing with Rafi, by the way. Notice Rafi ain't even talking about why she wants to go to Cloud City or whatever it's called, Free Cloud. So I'm curious about, does she have some kind of ulterior motive? And let's see, Yosa now rated against Discovery. Well, you can't rate it against something else. Discovery just plain sucked. This doesn't, at least not so far. But, you know, it's kind of like Discovery Season 2. Because up until the season finale of Season 2, I was actually enjoying a lot of Season 2 of Discovery. I liked the way that that Spock interacted with Burnham. I liked the fact that Spock felt like this, Burnham and Spock felt like a sibling relationship. They fought like real siblings, and Spock was not taking her crap, and I actually really dug that, and then they ruined it in the last episode. So, you know, and I also liked Pike until the last episode. So, so they didn't stick the landing, and that ruined the entire season. That's the problem with serialized shows like this, is that since it's all technically one long story, you know, each season is a singular story, then that means if they screw the 10th episode in a 10-episode season, you just screwed the entire season. And so the last episode of the season could elevate everything, or it could drag everything down. They wanted to use force healing in some of the scenes. I thought the way they use force healing in some of the scenes, I thought was dumb, though. Oh, well, I think the ending, the whole thing with Kylo and Rey at the very end, I would have done a complete rewrite. Because I think the whole, oh, wait, Kylo's not, no, yeah, he's dead again. That was stupid. But what they should have done, honestly, is had, I think what they should have done is had Rey heal Kylo, and then Rey be dead. If they want to keep Rey as the hero character. Otherwise, they should have made Rey straight up evil. June is in the house, says the complaint about force heals poorly thought out and breaks canon is common sense. We did roll our eyes at the ghost Obi-Wan with his point of view. Well, yeah, everybody rolled their eyes at, well, what I said was true from a certain point of view. I remember rolling my eyes at that back when I was a kid. But I don't think force heal was poorly thought out and breaks canon. How does it break canon? When did they say, oh, by the way, you can't use force heal? It's not, there's no such thing. Discovery is not Star Trek, so I can rate it just my opinion. Discovery is very similar to the Netflix Lost in Space. No, you know what? Here's the thing, Mako, and like I was telling Bird of Prey earlier, you can't do it that way. You have to consider it Star Trek. If you're a Trekhead. If you're not a Trekkie or a Trekker or whatever, then yeah, whatever, it's just a show. But if you care about Star Trek, Discovery is Star Trek. I'm not going to say, well, if Discovery didn't have the Star Trek label on it, I give it this score. But if it has Star Trek, no, it is Star Trek, so my score is just based on it being Star Trek. Force heal would have helped Qui-Gon Jinn, not necessarily we don't know the extent of how much you can heal, but Qui-Gon Jinn, by the time that Obi-Wan, and by the way, maybe Obi-Wan just never learned how to force heal, right? She obviously wasn't, or Obi-Wan clearly was not as powerful in the Force as Rey or Kylo, or Anakin or Luke. And so he just didn't have that level of power. Joseph almost forgot to hit the like. Well, thank you for remembering. The Bezo Plus says Picard should ignore the synths and convince Worf and the Klingons to launch a major offensive against Karoga. Agreed. I think Picard should do that. What a shocker. Gary gave it a 3 out of 10. Hey, like I said, that doesn't surprise me. I have no problem with the Force heal. It was explained in Revenge of the Sith novel. Only the Masters and the Jedi healers are allowed to learn it, and they were used it sparingly as to not break the balance. There you go. There's your explanation. Epic Beard says, my PC is on 24/7, 365. Guess it is AI Patient Zero. Yes, if you leave your computer on, it's self-aware. To be fair, my old PlayStation 3 became self-aware back in 2012. Luckily, it died a few months later. Well, that is good, or it would have destroyed the world. Desmond says Picard is getting his ass beat, then getting a few shots to into was a nice touch. Yeah, and I actually like that. I like the fact that they show Picard as a fighter, but that he is not a physically powerful person. And so I thought that they handled the Death Squad scene pretty well. A little nitpick on the acid effect. Why does the guy who chewed on the acid cone melt from the feet up? Why not? Maybe he swallowed it and that's what it does. I don't know. It's space magic. May I ask you a question? Did you leave your shirt out in the washing line a bit long and the blue ran out of the dye? No, this is just the way the shirt is. Is it worth it? I kind of felt like the free first episode. Well, here's the thing, Em. It's hard to say if it's worth it until we get to the end of the season. So far, I'm liking it, but at the end of 10 episodes, am I going to say that? I don't know. It depends on which way they go with it. And there's a couple of distinct paths they could go on. And some of those paths end in suckage. Some of those paths end in greatness. So I can't tell you that. Here's the question I trigger. In season 1 and 2 of Discovery, better than season 1 and 2 of TNG. You see, here's the problem with that, Trek Reviewer. From a technical standpoint, Discovery is clearly superior. That's no contest as far as visual effects and that kind of thing. But from and the problem is that TNG, of course, is episodic, where Discovery was serialized, although its serialization on Discovery was poorly done. So, but I'm going to say that, as far as comparing the first 2 seasons of Discovery to the first 2 seasons of TNG, there's an interesting parallel in that season 2 was clearly better than season 1, but season 2 was still, and here's the funny thing, season 2 ended with an absolute disaster. And, I believe, was it season 2 of, now I got to look, hold on. Let me go to search Star Trek, because I don't want to be wrong, because I hate being wrong and you guys love to point out when I'm wrong. So season 2 and yes, season 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation ended with Shades of Grey. An absolutely horrifically crappy episode. And so they're actually very much a parallel to each other. Because season 2 is better than season 1, but season 2 ended on a disastrous note in both Discovery and TNG. So I don't know. I think that what's going to ultimately decide whether season 1 and 2 of Discovery was better than season 1 and 2 of TNG is where does Discovery go from here. If season 3 of Discovery starts getting good and they do it season 4, 5, 6, 7 and becomes awesome, then it could very well compare to TNG. If season 3 is the same kind of train wreck that we saw in season 1 and 2, then no, it's over. Why? And that's the real secret, is do they learn from their mistakes? Star Trek The Next Generation started off horrible, but they very quickly learned to adjust. Why does Raffi want to shoot Picard and hate him so hard? Did he murder her kitten? No, he abandoned her. I don't blame her one damn bit. His move, his going into the Starfleet brass and saying, well, you're going to do this or I quit. And they said, okay, quit. Okay. And so he ended up quitting, right? But he didn't stop to think about the fact that was the second he did that, he ended her career as well. And in fact, that's even in the flashback scene, where as soon as he quits and comes out and tells her about what happened, she gets a call from the CNC. Guess what? Your ass is fired. And then she ends up living in a trailer in the middle of the desert, and Picard doesn't even bother to give her a freaking phone call for 15 years, and then shows up wanting her help. Damn right she's pissed at him. If we know that the Federation, and that's the thing, Darth, is that if they continue, like Picard was clearly in the wrong there. And if they continue to show Picard is not omniscient, Picard is not perfect, Picard makes mistakes. And by the way, I think that Picard should be at least partially wrong about the whole thing with synths and stuff. But if they continue that, this could be genius. A great character study of Picard and the fact that his optimism may have been somewhat misplaced. However, they're going to probably end up making it so that everything he did was correct. Because writing. Charles says, if we know that in the future a Federation is gone thanks to Discovery, that makes Picard a prequel, which stakes don't matter. That's kind of true. I hope that, but, maybe they'll say it's a possible future. Keck is saying, good night all, need some sleep. All right, my friend, take care. Yosef says, just rewatch the scenes. He spits the acid. Some of it lands on his legs and feet. Have the scene queued up. Yeah, I didn't rewatch it, so that's entirely possible. Because I know that the other guy spit the acid, and it kind of splattered all over himself. So that would kind of make sense. Maybe that's part of the deal, is that, if you just chew it, it'll dissolve your head. But if you spit it all over your body, it completely disintegrates you, and that makes it so that there's no evidence. Unless you count the Shatner novels as canon, Enterprise A technically was never destroyed. I would love to see the Ferengi use it as a mobile casino, hotel resort, and ship could be paid in gold. Okay. Yeah. In other news, actor Kirk Douglas died at age 103. Yes, we talked about that on Midnight's Edge. Very sad in a sense, but not sad. And I say it's not sad because the man was freaking 103. You cannot argue that he didn't live a full life. He was successful beyond most people's wildest dreams. I celebrate, my glass is raised to Kirk Douglas. Well done. Well done. And enjoy the other side. Force healing is in the expanded universe, so the Emperor using Force Lightning. So is the Emperor using Force Lightning to take down the fleet. Okay. Geode says, just found your stream, probably arriving late to this, but what did you think of how they did the Borg in this one? Well, I'm still not sold on this Borg thing. Because they're treating the Borg kind of weird. The idea that the Borg have their own internal mythology, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because when you're in the collective, you don't have individualized thoughts, so why would you have a mythology? That doesn't make a lot of sense at all, but we'll see where it goes. I thought, Hugh was okay, but there's really no explanation to how the hell is he... Why is he there? Why is he helping the Romulans? What's Hugh's motivations? I'm sure we'll get into that. But, I don't know. Dan says, no, I didn't get any notifications for this. I'm sorry, Dan. The Ozzy did. Well, that's good. Desmond says, what is your first impression of Hugh? I'll be rewatching the episodes on TNG to make comparisons. I didn't feel like Hugh, to be honest, but that's the problem. We need to get more from him, because right now in this one, he was just like Mr. Exposition. He didn't really have a character moment of his own. He was just there to get Daja's sister from point A to point B. So we'll see where they go with him. I would like to hear a Cap on a ship who needed extra room says delete the EMH for room, and then says, are you sad if I delete a data pad? Okay. Okay. Jar says season 2 ended with Shades of Grey. Yes, such a horrible episode. Why does Discovery need upside down rotating camera shots of the ship? Because why not? They did that in Star Trek 2009. By the way, in Star Trek 2009, I kind of liked it. In Discovery, it just felt cheap. There was a writer's strike during TNG season 2. Irrelevant. It does not matter if there was a writer's strike. Then they should have ended it in the episode before Shades of Grey. Quite frankly. If they couldn't produce a decent episode, then they shouldn't produce an episode, period. But a writer's strike, you know what? And by the way, F the writers when they go on strike. Oh, it's not fair. We're only making $18 million a year. Shut up. If you have a full-time job writing, consider yourself blessed. And freaking going on strike. I know people say, well, they weren't giving their fair share. Nobody gets their fair share in Hollywood, except for the freaking actors who get way too much. Anyway, Darther says, why was she fired? It's not her fault. Because she was Picard's personal assistant kind of person, and so if you fire her boss, you no longer need her, I guess. I like Picard being shown as flawed. I do too, and that's why I hope they keep that. If they keep that, this could be a genius deconstruction of Picard. If they don't keep it, it could be really stupid. But that doesn't seem very Starfleet, does it? I thought that despite its mistakes, Starfleet was supposed to be more of a utopianist type organization. Utopianist is an interesting word, but I'm working on a video on this very subject, Geode. No, Starfleet is very Starfleet in this. Starfleet is extremely Starfleet in this. And don't confuse Starfleet with the Federation. The Federation is the government. The Federation is the United Federation of Planets. It's the overseeing body of everything. Starfleet is just the military. And the reason that's important is because the military isn't utopia. The Federation is. And you know what? That hasn't changed. If you look at, particularly like in the first episode, if you look at Daj's life before the Romulan Death Squad showed up and everything went to hell, and yes, Auntie moved. She does move every now and then. Before the Death Squads and everything went to hell, she was pretty damn comfortable. As was everybody. Everybody's living in the life of luxury. Everybody's got all the great technology, a replicator in every apartment, blah, blah, blah. It's all happy and roses and unicorns. So the Federation is clearly utopia. But Starfleet is the freaking military. And they have to make military decisions. And, it's like, they tried to portray the Admiral of the CNC as being evil because when Picard says, we don't get to choose who lives and dies, and she says, yes, we do. And people are like, oh my God, she's evil. No, she's being practical. She's speaking the truth because you know what every single government ever has done? Chosen who lives and dies. How do they do that? Well, guess what? How much money are we going to divert to healthcare this year versus welfare programs versus foreign aid versus 150 other programs? And if you cut any one of them, people die. So yes, the government absolutely decides who lives and dies. That's one of the worst things about the government, and the absolute most sacred responsibility of the government is to take those decisions seriously, which is why I get so pissed off. I'm going to get political for just a second. I get so pissed off when I watch crap like the State of the Union address where Trump and Pelosi are acting like a couple of 3-year-olds because you're mean, I'm not going to shake your hand. Well, because you're mean, I'm going to tear up these papers. And it's like, there are people dying. Stop playing games and deal with the issues. But instead, they just want to point the finger at each other and say how horrible the other side is so that they can get more votes in the election coming up. So, yeah, absolutely the government decides who lives and dies, and they don't take it seriously in the real world. When do you think the Section 31 show is set? There is still no confirmation that there is a Section 31 show, Dan. I know there's articles out there on the internet that say there is. There is no confirmation. These articles are fake freaking news. I'm getting a little tired of it at this point because everybody thinks it's absolutely true that Section 31 is happening. There's no... Until CBS actually comes out and says, yeah, Section 31 is filming, don't buy into it. And if you're getting it off of some blog report or, or whatever, do not trust it. All right. If you're getting it, and don't get me wrong, I love my friends in the Phantom Menace. If you hear it from the Phantom Menace, find the freaking source. If the source ain't CBS, it ain't true. Just wait. As far as when if they do a Section 31 show, when it will be set, I don't know. They'll probably announce it at that time. How was Riker and Seven? Were they in it? They were not. We did meet Hugh. We did not see Riker or Seven. Shared mythology was maybe created after Unimatrix Zero was destroyed, and I thought about you, Anti-Checker, because it sounded like religion. It did, and it sounded kind of weird, and that's why I want to see where they're going with it, because there wasn't enough here. I want to explore that a little bit, but the problem is, will they have time? This is one reason I don't like the 10-episode formula for streaming shows. This should be a 26-episode season. I want to spend multiple episodes exploring this Borg mythology, which could be a really interesting idea, but instead they're just going to gloss over it and barely touch it, and then they'll just say, oh, there's a Borg mythology? Yes. Oh, that's interesting. That's fire phasers, Geode says, yeah, why would they have a mythology? They're essentially more machine than organic, right? No, they're actually more organic than machine. The machines just allow them to connect. I thought they transcended such things. Didn't the Borg Queen say as much in First Contact? Well, the Queen breaks the Borg, in my opinion. But despite that, the Borg are a singular consciousness. And so having a mythology, if you're a singular consciousness, doesn't make a lot of sense. Because in mythology, the whole idea of a mythology is a shared set of beliefs for people to come together and bond over. Right? And that's what a central point of religion and almost, even Star Trek with all of us right now. We have a shared mythology in Trek, and we bond over that. We can discuss these things and feel closer to each other because of our shared mythology of Trek. So the Borg don't need that. There is no social structure in the Borg. Everybody is simply the Borg. And so it makes no sense whatsoever for the Borg to have mythology. Now, maybe they have an explanation for it, and maybe that explanation is interesting, but the problem is that are they going to actually spend the time to explore it, or is what we saw with basically a Borg using tarot cards going to be as far as it goes? Don't know. Nathan says, good morning, how you doing? Dan says, is Shades of Grey the only Star Trek clip show? I believe it is. So, yeah, and it's horrible. Do you think the top brass are angry and dicks because they're captains and commanders of the Dominion War who lost entire crews and friends and aren't explorers anymore? No, I think that I don't think that they're necessarily angry and dicks. I think that they're being practical and pragmatic, which is what you have to do. But I'm sure they're going to make them into evil conspirators. That's the problem, is that if they make everybody in Starfleet brass a conspirator, I'm going to just lose it. So basically very bureaucratic, and everything that implies, I guess I was a bit taken aback because I don't recall them ever really stripping Starfleet officers of their commission. Well, they never Kirk almost lost his commission a couple of times. And so it just depends. I mean, and Picard was brought up on charges once or twice. I mean, it does happen. It's just that, of course, you're not going to strip a main character of their commission. And Picard wasn't stripped of his commission. He resigned. I remember Starfleet officers resigning their commission like Chakotay when he joined the Maquis, but I don't know if they just straight up fire Picard. They didn't straight up fire Picard. He said it. He said, you either do this or you accept my resignation. And their answer was, we'll accept your resignation. Now, as far as his assistant losing her job, well, her job no longer existed. She was an assistant to Picard. And I don't, they say, well, she was the first officer on this ship. Well, obviously she had some kind of special attachment to Picard. She was like his attaché, even though in the comic books, apparently she's his first officer, which that doesn't really add up. And if that's the case, it doesn't make any sense that they would fire her. But, comics are comics. Do you think lore and pieces of data is what Bruce Maddox experimented on? Is that why there's always two? I don't think that that's necessarily why there's always two, but I'm hoping that that has to do with lore. I am a monarchist because democracy makes us into children. Okay. Gia says, although I can imagine them court-martialing him for insubordination. Well, he resigned. There's no insubordination. He didn't disobey an order. He just said, you know what? You either change the orders or I quit. Loquicious just dropped in. What do you think of the episode? Give it a 6.5 out of 10. Joseph says, work sucks. Stream paused due to conference call. I'm so sorry about that. I know. I hate it when you have to pause the stream. Section 31 information was an interview from Alex Kurtzman, who didn't mention anything about casting. Yeah, but you also got to look. Here's the thing about those kinds of articles, Dan. A lot of them are from interviews of Alex Kurtzman from a year ago, when everybody was all rose and unicorns and there's going to be 17 Star Trek shows. check very carefully on that, because a lot of those articles, oh yeah, in an interview, Kurtzman said that the Section 31 show is going to be awesome, right? And then you find out, well, that interview was back before Discovery even came out. The secular, humanist, atheistic philosophy of Star Trek is a religion. We just pretend that it's not a religion. It's atheistic. Actually, the interesting thing about SK is that, is it really the secular, humanist, atheistic philosophy of Star Trek, or is it just the secular, humanist, atheistic philosophy of Picard? I tend to think of it as the latter, because Kirk was nobody's atheist. And I don't think that Sisko was either. Clearly, the Bajorans weren't. And so, yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily the secular, humanist, atheistic philosophy of Star Trek. I think that it's just Picard. Phantom Menace is in the house, says, no ship was near Mars and tried to stop it. I think not the most heavily trafficked areas. Thousands of ships should have been there in seconds unless there was a diversion. Well, here's the thing. From what we saw of the Martian attack, it didn't seem like there was a lot of response time. I mean, the entire attack looked like it was just a matter of minutes. And so think about this. How long does it take, let's say you're the captain of a starship, how long does it take to, A, get the word from Starfleet Command? Okay, so the attack begins. So somebody at Mars transmits to Starfleet Command, holy crap, we're under attack. Starfleet Command has to assess the situation and say, yes, indeed, they are under attack. Contact the USS Crazy Horse. The Crazy Horse then gets the dispatch from Starfleet Command on a Priority 1 channel. The captain then has to order Red Alert, brief the crew that there's an attack on Mars, and then engage warp to go there. Now, this whole process is going to take, at minimum, we'll say, 15 minutes. Minimum. That's assuming that there are no lags, no delays, nothing. And so 15 minutes from the initial attack to the arrival of the USS Crazy Horse, and in 15 minutes, Mars is gone. So I don't have a problem with that. The Borg mythology could be used to aid in assimilation. I'm not sure how that would aid in assimilation. I'd love them to tell what the origin of the Borg was. I would love that too, but I don't know if they will. What species do you think Hugh is? Originally TNG, he was a Borg species. I know, and that's the thing. I don't know. He looks human, but who knows? Same with folklore. It's a way for people to feel connected to each other, but if you already share a collective consciousness, having that seems a bit weird. Yeah, exactly. I don't understand that, and I want them to explain it, but they're probably never going to. There has never been a society without religion. Even Soviet communism has a religion. The new atheism is a religion. I agree, but I just don't agree that Star Trek is secular, humanist, atheistic. I think that Picard is. Not Picard the show, Picard the character. Nathan Norman says she was a Starfleet officer, so she would not have been fired. She would have been reassigned. Maybe she protested with Picard and she was given a dead-end job, making her quit. Or maybe the CNC... because here we don't know the details of it, but yeah, assuming that she has some kind of integrity and that she stands with Picard, because clearly she and Picard were seeing eye to eye on the whole Romulan situation, and clearly the CNC was not a big fan of evacuating Romulus. So if the CNC brings her into the office and says, okay, so here's the deal, we're not going to do the Romulan thing. You're going to be put, here's going to be your new duty post, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, no, we need to do the Romulan thing. Look, this is what your assignment is. Either take it or quit. Okay, I quit. You know, but she would still blame Picard for that because she wouldn't have to do that if Picard didn't quit. At least it could be one of those more popular areas in the Federation. It's a capital world. Capital system should not be the most popular areas ship-wise, right? Well, here's the thing. Looking at Mars is not a particularly... It's not like Mars is Earth 2 in the Federation. Mars is basically an industrial area that's used solely for the construction of starships. That's kind of what it looks like. And in fact, they talked about the noxious gases that are in the Martian atmosphere and stuff as a result of all this construction. Mars is just a huge factory. And a well-coordinated, and there are thousands upon thousands of these synths on Mars working to build the ships and stuff, and they even talk about that in this episode, that's why they had all these synths, because they were trying to build this huge armada of ships, and they didn't have enough people to do it. And they were talking about getting more synths to try and rebuild this armada. But that's when we found out that the Federation banned synths. But if you have thousands of these synths coordinated, and keep in mind, that's not hard to do. I mean, if you have a million computers and you type in one command for all the computers to shut down simultaneously, it's not that hard to do, right? So you just do that with the synths. You program them to all attack at this particular moment. The entire planet could be decimated in a matter of a few minutes. Borg mythology in normal practice seems crazy, but it could have been used while new life forms are being assimilated. It's been mentioned that the process is psychologically painful. But it doesn't matter how psychologically painful the process is, because once the assimilation is complete, you are part of the singular consciousness, and so psychologically, you are simply one of the collective. And no longer do any of your fears, wants, forms, psychological scars, abuse as a child, none of that matters. As soon as you are in the collective, none of that matters. And so there is absolutely no need to ease someone's transition into the collective. And I mentioned monarchism in context of the Pelosi-Trump bit. I understand, SK, but I don't think that monarchism is the answer. Where was Hugh? I didn't catch him. He was the dude in charge of the reclamation on the Borg cube. The one that took Daja's sister, I can never get her name right, to go see the Borg that was doing the tarot cards. Funny thought, since we know time loops exist randomly, how many ships do you think are lost in time? 42. Janeway is not an atheist. She believed in the coffee god and prayed to it religiously. Not only that, but actually in Voyager, they flat out said spirit animals exist. So, yeah, it's definitely not atheistic as a franchise, but some characters are. I meant Roddenberry's ideas, not the characters, but I do see Picard as a religious man for following secular humanism. Well, yeah, Picard worships at the altar of atheism, but that's just Picard. And Picard also, I mean, he worships and did worship the Prime Directive for some time, except for when it's inconvenient. Another lovely 8 p.m. live stream, Aussie time. I gave the episode a 7 out of 10. I gave episode 1 a 7 out of 10. Episode 2 a 5 out of 10. This episode I gave a 2. Why 2? Because it should be a 26 episode season. I agree that it should be a 26 episode season, but I don't drag down the score of an individual episode because of the season problem. Unless, like, obviously in retrospect, if the ending of the series is absolute crap, it may drag down my overall enjoyment of every episode, but yeah. And Shadow Walker says, I was so angry when the Romulans were talking in the corridor and all wanted them to do was to move out of the way and talk about the flying things that were in the background. TNG would have. Okay, not sure what you mean. Steven says, by definition, the lack of a religion is not a religion. Yes, but the thing is, secular humanism is not the lack of a religion. And you could argue about it all. Hey, we don't have a Bible or whatever. Fine. You know what? You want to go ahead and believe that you don't worship anything when you do. That's fine. I don't care. And this is not a religious channel. Join me over on Rational Roundtable Sunday mornings and we can argue about it. Can you use warp in a solar system? Depends on the episode. And let's see. And SK points out atheism is not a lack of religion. Atheism isn't even a lack of belief in God. It's a belief that gods don't exist. That is technically correct. But yes. New atheism is not mere atheism. That is true as well. Phantom Menace was saying, I was thinking more automated distress signals and ships passing through the area. Well, the thing is that so under what circumstances does the automated distress signal go off? Does it go off because there's an explosion? If so, exactly what size? Exactly what, so I think an automated distress signal would be a pretty dangerous thing. You'd have to have a human behind it. And the synths were very efficient, as we saw at eliminating the humans right away. And by the way, if you notice in episode 2, when they actually show the Martian attack from the ground, the first thing the synths do before they actually do any damage is hit the computer terminals and enter in a bunch of information, possibly disabling said automated distress signals. Could the mythology be a byproduct of the Borg that were separated from the collective that Lore tried to use? I don't know that it still doesn't make a lot of sense. That's the problem, because, I mean, those Borg didn't seem to have any, and by the way, Hugh was a part of that group, of course, but there was no, you would think there would be some reference to it. The Mars attacks, this is why I think we need home fleets in the solar system that are at Earth, warp 0.2 seconds, and they destroy all the satellites. But Darth, if you still, you're still forgetting response time. Yes, if you have, I'm sure that there are starships at Earth, right? And they could get to Mars in a matter of a few seconds. But it's not like the instant the attack starts, they know there's an attack, they go to red alert, and they warp there. You have to, it doesn't work that quickly. It never works that quickly. It can't work that quickly. And so yes, there's always going to be a window of at least a few minutes for reaction time, especially if the synths, as I suspect, disabled any kind of automated distress signal or anything like that, which means that Mars stopped transmitting. And so here's what happens. Admiral, we lost communication with Mars. We did? Better send a ship out there to see what's going on. Okay, they'll be there in a few minutes. They're going in impulse because we have no reason to think that it's a dire emergency. Okay, let us know what happens. Sir, Mars is on fire. Oh, crap! Get the forces there! Well, everybody's already dead. Oh, okay. Who would you like to be commanding the Enterprise F? Honestly, I don't know. Crusher, why not? Wesley Crusher is captain of the Enterprise F. I don't know. Enterprise pilot Tucker and Fast, warp 4.5 next Thursday. Archer, Neptune and back in 6 minutes. Yeah? And your point? I thought, what if when Mars was attacked and the ships went to Earth what if when Mars was attacked, the ships went to Earth in case there was an attack on Earth? Well, you're assuming, Darth Revan, A, that all the ships had a full crew on them and were able to do that. We don't know that because, they had thousands of these ships being built in orbit around Mars. So why would you keep a full staff? That would be hundreds of thousands of people. And by the way, it was a holiday, and they even said that most of the people were off duty. Which was, that's the perfect time to do it. You don't attack when everybody's at battle stations. You attack when everybody's got the day off. Mythology in academic terms is not a story that's fake. It's an explanatory narrative. A myth can be 100% true and still be a myth if it encompasses an accepted truth. That's true. You may not see monarchism as the answer, but I don't see republicanism as the answer or heroic. Never said republicanism was the answer or heroic. Janeway fought a demon. I see her as an open-minded Vatican II Catholic. Okay. Those are 3 very interesting statements that seem to have no cohesive narrative. Dan says, DS9 by Inferno Slide. Dax, we're too far away. Kira, want to bet? Take us to warp. Dax, inside the solar system. Kira, if we don't, there won't be a solar system left. Yeah, I know. That's the problem, is that it's inconsistent. And guess what? Welcome to Star Trek. It's inconsistent. M says, Picard's anti-theism speech was the best. I thought it was offensive, quite frankly. And so, but that's, yeah, you're talking about who watches the Watchers. That speech was downright offensive. I think the event, because it was factually incorrect, I think that the events of the State of the Union will cost Pelosi more votes than it will cost Trump. Don't care. I think they're both behaving like babies. Loquisha says, and I'm not voting for Trump, by the way, and I'm not, certainly can't vote for Pelosi, but yeah, I'm probably going to end up voting Libertarian again. What were the biggest issues you had with the episode? Well, I don't know. There's a few things. that I didn't like. I didn't like Space Weed. I thought Space Weed was stupid. That just still bugs me. There was, I'd have to go back and rewatch it. But I didn't like the fact that the doctor was being interrogated by the chief of Starfleet security, and then she just shows up. And by the way, there's an elite Romulan death squad in the building, and she just picks up a gun and shoots one of them. Really? The Romulan death squad, these ultimate elite people are really? So I think that the dialogue, once again, was the ultimate weak point of the series, because they keep writing it as contemporary dialogue, which I don't like. That's a few things, but I mean, I'm not going to overly analyze it right now. I saw it once, and it's 4:45 in the morning. Let's see. Whenever atheists brand their channel rational, I lose interest. Being rational tends to be defined by atheists as being an atheist, and it's dull. Well, that's why my other channel is called Rational Roundtable. And if you, I enjoy talking to atheists and theists from all walks. But that's the place for it. What species is Hugh? Well, we don't, and originally he was just Borg species, but I don't know, he looks human. What about ships passing through the area? You realize how big space is, right? You don't just pass within a few thousand miles of Mars. You wouldn't be close enough to see what was going on until it was already... By the time you could see what was going on, it was already too late. That's the thing. It was a coordinated attack launched by thousands, if not tens of thousands, of individual androids simultaneously killing everyone, blowing everything up all at once. I don't understand why people think that there would be some kind of way to react to it. I really don't. I mean, people that are arguing about this, I genuinely don't understand how you think that you could have reacted to it. If you had 10,000 robots all in California right now, and each one of them was at a strategic location, sabotaging the power grid and causing mass mayhem, by the time you could scramble a single National Guard unit, everybody in California would be dead. And that's in this country. The synths could have uploaded a virus that's still in the system, so the sensors would always mark them as friends or ignore them altogether. That's what I would do. Well, we don't know exactly what they did, but obviously the synths did something to the computer system. They showed that in the attack in episode 2, that clearly the synths had a well-defined plan, and they executed it flawlessly because they were robots. All right. No, I mean the home fleet, not the ships that are being built on Mars. What home fleet, Darth Revan? There's no home fleet. There's no fleet of ships parked at Mars waiting to attack, right? And if the ships are on Earth, then they would have to get notification, scramble everybody to battle stations, prep the ship, warp over to Mars, and then, oh, look, everybody's already dead. There is no reasonable way to have a response time that would be able to counter this. That's the problem. It just doesn't work that way. And people that think it would, and I'm not dissing you, Darth Revan, I'm just saying in general, people that think that, oh, you could just respond, you don't understand what it means to, as far as military response, you don't do like that, right? It's not like, if let's say that Pearl Harbor was attacked right now, it's not like, okay, yes, technically speaking, at maximum speed, let's say the Air Force could have a dozen squadrons of jets at Pearl Harbor in, I don't know what the actual flight time, so I'm just going to pull a number out of my butt. Let's say it would take them 15 minutes at Mach whatever to get from California, Oregon, Washington, and Alaskan air bases to Hawaii and converge and counter it, right? 15 minutes total response time, right? No, because you still have to get the word to the President of the United States, and the President of the United States has to authorize the attack. You don't just send people You have to it has to go through the chain. It doesn't work any other way. If they could simply do it on their own, guess what? You would have mass chaos. If a military commander could simply make that decision on their own, yeah, that would be a very, very bad idea. Death squads used to be more competent, but after the fall, you got to work with what you got. Phantom Menace says, thank you for your arguments. You bring up excellent points to think about, even though I tried to challenge you as well, and I thank you. Well, no problem, Phantom, and thank you for the challenges. I appreciate it. And I mean that. I like having discussions about this, and it needs to be two ways. I absolutely can be wrong about this stuff, and sometimes I am, so I don't have a problem discussing it. The Borg Cube and Best of Both Worlds went past Mars. Yes, but that Borg Cube also, they knew it was coming. So the Mars Defense Force, which ended up being 3 little ships, was scrambled. To be fair, the way that California is going, there could actually be robots killing everyone in California. That's... Lore could be the main villain because they seem to be taking great pains to make sure everyone focuses on Data and forgets about Lore. He could have control of the synths like he did Data. I kind of tend to think Maddox is the big bad. But yeah, I could see Lore being behind it theoretically, but I don't know. I don't think Brent Spiner would want that. Can you transport from planet to planet in the solar system? It's mentioned in Trek you can transport from Earth to the moon. Don't know. As far as I know, you can't, but even if you could, that wouldn't help you much, because if you could instantaneously transport to Mars, guess what? You need ships. You know, just transporting yourself there means that, oh, look, you're dead. And again, the synths disabled a lot of stuff before the attack, so I'm sure if there were transporters to go from Earth to Mars, that would have been disabled. Do you remember who identified Hugh by name? Was it... oh gosh, I'm not 100% sure. I remember hearing his name, but I can't remember who it was that said it. So I'm not 100% sure on that, Loquacious. I don't know if it was Daj's sister or if it was the Romulan administrator. I'm trying to remember which, but I think it was one of those two. They know of a previous Dyson sphere. How long does it take to reverse engineer stuff in the 24th century? Great Scott. I know. Move the story along. Well, what does the Dyson sphere have to do with it? Are you talking about the relocation of the Romulans, or are you I'm not sure what you mean. Mike says, we request sanctuary, beep boop. Yes. Lore can be rebuilt. I forgot about that. What do you mean he can be rebuilt? You can't just replicate his positronic brain. They would also have to check all the schematics in the database that they were constructing to make sure that they didn't undermine the designs or build in a weakness. Not sure where you're going with that. Do you like it in Trek when they can transport an entire shuttle? I don't know. Dan, that's a weird way to phrase it. Do I like it when they can transport an entire shuttle? I don't particularly like it, but it doesn't bother me. Lore was only shot and deactivated by Data. Yes, so the pieces of Lore, theoretically, at the last time we saw Lore, if I remember correctly, was in Descent Part 2. And he was deactivated and disassembled. We don't know where he was stored or if he was destroyed. Now, and so that is one of those great mysteries that we'll probably never have the answer to. C'est la vie. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up there, guys, because I've got a review to do now. Oh, man, this is going to be a tough one. I do appreciate the spirited conversation, by the way, and sorry to cut off those of you that wanted to talk about atheism, theism stuff. I get it. That's interesting, and it is relevant to some of the stuff you see in Picard, but I try not to get too deep into that stuff on this channel because I don't want YouTube to shut me down. And believe me, YouTube hates discussions on these subjects, particularly if you take one particular side in that conversation. So that I reserve for my alternate channel, Rational Roundtable, and I do stream there every Sunday morning, specifically to discuss such things. Nathan says the shipyards were building things so they could have put flaws into construction or changed parts of the construction materials to undermine the strength. They could have, but we don't know how long-term this plan was. Shadow Walker says thanks. Darth Vader says Sleep well. Don't forget to eat. Also, how's your leg strength? Leg strength is still virtually non-existent. It's slightly better than it was a couple of months ago, but it's nowhere near what it should be. Honestly, from the looks of things, I'm just kind of boned. I'm going to be walking with a cane for probably the rest of my life, and there's not much I can do about that. And nobody gives a crap in the American healthcare or insurance system, so I just have to work in extreme pain. Screw me, I guess.
Making your way with the nerds today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from hating JJ sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to just get laid? Sometimes you wanna go where all the Trekkies know your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be in a galaxy where Star Trek isn't lame. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. Turds of a feather flock together, that's what we believe. We know a place that's got you covered, a place to get relief. Wouldn't you like to say me prove? Sometimes you wanna go where Turnisteades know your name, and all Karogans are to blame. You wanna be where you can see Karoga go up in flames. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
You son of a bitch, anti-tracker!